I am all over the map today. Welcome to Eviliv, the live media commentary show that answers a question. Why does Rocky keep asking Ryland to fist him? Subscribe if you're new to the channel, because today we are reviewing Project Hail Mary, the novel. That's right. All right, so my initial thoughts are, I'd seen the movie. I desperately wanted to read the book, but I was waiting for my copy to be available from the library. And then finally got it and read it, and my mind was blown. It was so much better than the film. The film was amazing. I really, really enjoyed it. It's really good. But the novel, for me, captures the genuine humanity of the character outside of the actor playing them. So you get this sense of Ryland where he's actually like a genuinely amazing scientist and not like a star-studded, hunky actor type playing a scientist. And yes, that is a huge differentiation when you're watching the actual film versus reading the novel. And the novel is so wonderfully written. My biggest complaint, and this is still in my initial thoughts here, my biggest complaint is that the alien feels too human. And you can make the argument that, well, it feels too human because it's filtered through a human. Of course, we know about and understand the alien through Ryland's character. You can also say, well, it was written by a human, so what do you want? And yeah, those are all fair points. I can't, dispute any of them. But it's still something that has been just sort of nagging at me. They came up with some understanding, some sort of ideas about why that would be the case through the course of the novel, which actually are really profound and beautiful. And look, I laughed out loud reading this. I cried reading this. I mean, it was genuinely a fantastic novel. If you like sci-fi, you can't do much better. So let's get into the details. So this is called Project Hail Mary. The author was Androu Weir. This is his third book. He's printed by Ballantine Books on May 4th, 2021 originally. It is a hard science fiction novel. So there's a lot of actual science spouted off through the whole process of the novel. It explains how he gets to the understandings that he gets to throughout the course of the book through scientific explanations, and I love that. I have to be honest, I don't fully understand all of it, so it could all be just bullshit. But I'm pretty sure it's not, simply because other people are telling me that it's actually real, and he went to such great lengths to have scientific minds helping him with the science. So I have to believe that while it is a science fiction story, it's based in actual science. And regardless of the fact, I was thoroughly entertained and I believed every single word of it had the potential of reality to it. Whether or not it was actual reality is a little irrelevant since it is just a book. All right, so it is a finalist in the 2022 HUGO Award for Best Novel. It received tons of awards throughout its span, and of course, it was made into a massive film starring Ryan Gosling and Sandra Hüller, with Drew Goddard writing it. This, of course, is the second novel that he wrote second movie he wrote based off of Androu Weir's projects, the first one being The Martian. And of course, Phil Lord and Christopher Miller directed it. Now, when I had reviewed the movie, which I've already reviewed, I loved it. I still want to go see it again. I thought the humor came from Lord and Miller, the filmmakers. I didn't realize that it was actually inherent in the novel. And I would actually make the argument that the novel is funnier than the movie is funny. So while I do think that Phil Lord and Christopher Miller were great at directing the film, and they were probably the exact right directors to direct the film, the humor needs to go straight up to first Androu Weir, and then of course second to Drew Goddard, who wrote the screenplay and of course pulled that from the novel. So let's not give Phil Lord and Christopher Miller all the humor, kudos, because it really did come from Androu Weir first. And of course, it was released into theaters March 20th, 2026, the film version of it. All right, so the story, I'm sure you already know if you've seen the film and if you read the novel and stuff, but I'm still going to go point by point to sort of talk about some of the the elements of this novel that I really enjoyed, or maybe didn't. And because of that, this is spoiler territory. So if you don't want to know anything about this, you want to read it yourself, or you want to see the film yourself, don't watch this. Go live your life. Go watch the film. Go read the book. Then come back and watch this. All right. So from here on out, pure spoiler territory. So it all ultimately takes place on the Hail Mary spacecraft, which was constructed by a combined effort of all of Earth. And it is intercut with flashbacks of Grace's memories. Ryland Grace is the main character. As his memory is returning, as he is actively in space in a totally different star system, he's trying to science his way out of the situation, and he's starting to remember why he's there, what he's supposed to be doing, and his entire memory comes back by the end of the novel. And so it's sort of cut in time as you're reading it, from present time of him being in space, trying to work out this problem, and then him flashing back to memories about before he woke up on this spaceship. Really beautifully written, and the way that it's framed is really, really nice. Okay, all that being said, it all starts because there's this Petrova line. The sun is losing its shine, and all of the heat that is supposed to be coming to Earth, that's where we get our life on Earth, is the sun, is dying. The sun is dimming, and the dimming sun means global ice age and total human extinction within 30 years. They discover the reason for it is something called astrophage, which is a single-celled space algae that eats solar radiation and breeds near Venus. So the solution that they come up with is that Earth creates the Hail Mary starship, a spaceship powered by the very thing that kills the sun, astrophage, because it absorbs the radiation of the sun so effectively that you can actually use a breeding engine to manipulate that energy and almost go as close to light speed as any human could ever go. It's really, really cool as they break the science down for it. Again, it is sci-fi, but still. It's a one-way suicide mission to Tau Ceti, which is the star system that is not affected like every other star system. And so there must be a reason why. And so they send 3 crew, 1 scientist, and then 2 astronauts to go off to Tau Ceti to do the science, find out why astrophage isn't killing their sun, and see if we can somehow gather that data and replicate these findings to Earth to save all of Earth. So we pick up with Ryland Grace. He wakes up from a coma with amnesia and discovers his 2 dead crewmates. He has to science his way into remembering that he's on a spaceship, because again, there's no like open windows or, anything for him to look out. It is a spaceship, and he's sort of locked in a room until he can figure out how to get out of it. And through that means he has to unlock his memories. And so it all comes slowly unraveling to him. But I like how they work with the process of discovering and remembering. I think it's done really, really well. All right. So the twist is that we find out Grace was not a brave volunteer. He was actually a junior high teacher forced onto the ship by a character named Eviliv3, a woman basically given God mode over authority on Earth because the actual experts died in the accident. So they had this massive testing phase where Ryland Grace was giving his scientific suggestions because he came up with a paper that said life does not need water to exist. And then as soon as they found the astrophage, and it's in space, they have to try to figure out if it needs water, what it is, how it all works. His discovery that it does in fact use water, it does in fact even have DNA. And so the evolutionary chain somewhere is linked to us somehow because of DNA. So we're talking like panspermia. That's how humans evolved on Earth, or all life evolved on Earth. Because of panspermia, and whatever did that also created the astrophage. So it's not saying there was one finite source and identifying that source of what life is. It's just saying that we both living organisms evolved from the same source, whatever that was. And it never explores what that is. That's not the point of the novel. And so he gets involved because they want to figure that out. And if it doesn't need water, he's the perfect person because he's the only person that wrote this PhD statement about it, this paper that basically ostracized him from the entire scientific community. So he ultimately becomes part of the team and helps everyone. He ends up being the foremost authority on astrophage. He even names it. And when there was an accident, because again, astrophage itself holds so much energy, if they are compromised, they can explode. And again, it's like multiple times of a nuclear bomb. And so that's exactly what happens when the actual scientific astronauts are running some tests. They were given more astrophage than they needed, and it ended up completely obliterating both the actual scientist that was going to be going and the backup that was going to be going, leaving basically Ryland the only one left. And so he was sandbagged. I mean, he was literally imprisoned, and then they doped him up and knocked him out, gave him amnesia with drugs, and put him into a coma against his will, and then put him on the ship because they knew that, one, he refused to do it. He didn't want to die, period. And anyone that's going on the ship, it's a one-way ship. They only have enough astrophage to get out there, get the information, send probes back, but they didn't have enough astrophage to send an entire ship back. And that's a huge problem because Earth only has a finite amount of years left. They have to get the information back as soon as possible. So they couldn't rely on the astronauts coming back. So even though the probes that they're sending back are a little bit more vulnerable, they send 4 of them with duplicate information. So they're doing their best to hedge all their bets, but all the astronauts knew they were going to die. That was part of the thing. And Ryland Grace did not want to. He abjectly refused. So he went there against his will, trapped on the space station, but he doesn't realize it until after he's already figured out the solutions. And then he's just angry. He's still not going to punish all of Earth, but he's pissed about how it all unfolded, justifyingly so. And you as a reader are brought along this journey, and you get a little bit angry too. How could you not? You've been with this character the whole time. So the stakes are he has to find out why Tau Ceti is immune and sends the data back via the Beetle probes. And if he fails, then Earth dies. So he's on a timetable and he has to figure it out. Enter First Contact. So Grace encounters an alien ship, which he ends up referring to just as like Blip A, from the star system 40 Eridani. This is actually a real place, and it's actually a place where Spock, as far as Star Trek is concerned, that fiction is supposed to have come from as well. But that's all just connective tissue for fans. He meets this alien, which he names Rocky, which is basically an eyeless, spider-like engineer who communicates through musical notes. And he's the sole survivor of his crew because his species doesn't know about radiation. They barely got space travel. They use sonar to see and like sound. And they have these hard exterior carapace shells where all their squishy tissue's inside. And another interesting part of all of this is they realize that he shares DNA as well. Like all life is created from the same shared evolutionary experience. And so it's all connected, whether it's the Eridanis, the humans, the astrophage, and then they find out the solution to the astrophage, which they end up naming Talmiba. And that's also sharing the same DNA, and it's, all evolved life. So it's just this brilliant idea that life will populate the galaxy. Not even just the galaxy, the universe, but of course we're all within the galaxy in this story. And it doesn't matter. It's like life will happen, just like Jurassic Park is making that statement, life finds a way. Same thing with this story, and evolution is a bitch because it's at the heart of all of this. The reason why our Eridani look like they do is because of evolution. They evolved on a planet with like 5 times the amount of gravity or more than that, like 9 times the gravity of Earth. And so they had to evolve in different ways. Because of that evolution, because of the gravity of their planet, it never had a issue with radiation. So it never... their species never built up a defense mechanism to radiation like ours has, because we don't have enough gravity. Our gravitational field, which surrounds all of Earth, is not as strong as the Iridanes, and so radiation leaks through from our sun, and it all affects evolution. And it's just a brilliant statement on evolution itself. And so we get this great story between these two characters where they become best buds, and it ends up being a bromance of sorts. You spend enough time with someone, but it's all through the lens of survival of species, trying to find a problem. Rocky, the alien, is an engineer. He doesn't understand science. And Ryland Grace is a scientist. He doesn't understand engineering. So they literally need each other. And the Iridanes have created this metallic substance that we've never created. It's called xenonite. I mean, we've found liquid forms of it, but not solid forms like the Iridanes have created. And so they literally need each other to figure this out, but they also go through a bunch of different processes of saving each other's lives. And it's just this beautiful story about learning to love someone as a friend and not just a survival scientist situation. Like, you actually learn to care about them with long enough exposure. And it says through the course of that, though this is not a real part of the book, it's just something I picked up on, that as much as evolution is an important part of what it means to be alive, so is finding connection with other people, whether that's through another sentient being or some other form of life. We need that connection in order to thrive and feel value in existence. And I find that to be a beautiful footnote to this entire story. And I desperately love this story when it connects on those really firm levels of the connection between Ryland and Rocky, and how much they genuinely care for each other and have friendships and sorrow with each other's lives and feel the connective tissue between them. It's genuinely beautiful. All right, so the humans and the Iridians have to face the same exact extinction level, so that's why the Iridians came here as well, because their sun's dying too, just like every other sun in measurable space, but this one in Tau Ceti. Is it Tau Ceti, or did I just make that up? Let me double check. I got tons of notes here. Yeah, Tau Ceti. So they find out that there's another species called Tomebas, which is on a planet that they name Adrian, tongue-in-cheek after Rocky, because Rocky's girlfriend has a name that Ryland Grace doesn't know how to pronounce, because Rocky speaks in music, which is very, very cool. And so they sort of come up with the idea of Rocky and Adrian and whatever. So, because it's the planet that's going to save all of them, especially Rocky's planet, and save Rocky's wife. So they name it Adrian. The Tomeba actually eat a lot of the astrophage. So the astrophage will shoot out to get radiation from the sun, dim the sun, come back, and that cycle of back and forth actually drains the sun. But with the Tomeba eating a lot of the astrophage before it can go back out, it actually tamps down that process so that it's actually a manageable level where it eats what it needs to eat. It's like controlling the species. So if deer get too, because we've destroyed all of the natural predators of deer in the United States, if they get too abundant, they actually destroy ecosystems. And so we have to go out and hunt them to manage the population, or else it'll throw the entire ecosystem out of whack. That was our fault. We did that. But because of that, we have to care about it, right? Same thing with the Tomebas and the astrophage. And so they have to figure out a way to make the Tomeba radiation resistant so that it can survive on the planets that the Tomeba is reproducing on in both the Iridian star system and Earth's star system. Once they can do that, then they can go back home and they have solved the problem. But doing that means they have to breed generations and let evolution take its process. And that takes time, not like human evolution scale, because that would be billions of years, but because there's such small lifespans with them and they're slowly dripping in nitrogen and carbon dioxide so that they can survive in these planets like Venus, which has this huge nitrogen content air, and carbon dioxide is what they need in large quantities to reproduce, then once they become resistant to that so they can survive in Venus, then they can send back the probes and they've solved the problem. They eventually do it, but in doing so, they create a real issue because now the Taumiba is able to burrow through, they've evolved to burrow through xenonite, which is a problem because once it gets through xenonite, it can go attack astrophage anywhere, including in the ship, which is the entire defense mechanism and propulsion of the ship. And so it completely shuts down their ships one at a time, and they have to clean everything out, and it's a big, horrid nightmare. Ultimately, they solve the problem. They send off the probes. They say their loving goodbyes, and they go their separate ways. But then the ship, again, the Taumiba, gets out, and it shuts down Ryland Grace's ship. He fixes it, but he realizes that Rocky doesn't know how to do any of this stuff. He's not a scientist, and so he's not going to know how to fix it. So he's going to be dead, and his entire species, his whole planet is going to be dead because their son's going to die, and he's not going to get back in time because his ship is going to be just floating in space. It's not going to have any power to get back home. And so Ryland makes the choice to go save his friend and send the probes back to Earth. And Ryland knows that he's going to die because he doesn't have enough food to get back home, let alone wait in Iridian's planet. He's just going to have to sacrifice his life for a friend. A beautiful, beautiful moment of him sharing that idea with Rocky when he gets back to him. So endearing, so heartwarming. And then, of course, Rocky's species is incredibly intelligent. They figure out a way to clone human meat from Ryland himself. And so he's literally eating his own cloned human meat to survive while they're building up enough astrophage to send him back home. But the book ends before he's ever sent back home because he ends up, just like the book started, being a teacher. But instead of being a teacher to the kids, now he's a teacher to the Iridian kids. And it's such a beautiful moment. We see this really great friend experience. The science on figuring it all out is so engaging. It's not boring or confusing at all. It's really explained wonderfully. This is a brilliant story. I absolutely loved every second of it. I had to stop myself after every 100 pages just so I could stop and think and digest what I read and appreciate it for what it was rather than just blowing through the whole novel, because that's it. It makes you want to. It reads so fast, so effortlessly, and it's so engaging and funny and heartwarming. You wouldn't believe you're reading a hard science fiction survival story with how good it is. It's just so great. So my favorite part is the connection between Ryland and Rocky and the science. I'm someone that I am fascinated with science. I've always loved it, and especially astronomy. I just find space stunning and brilliant and beautiful and terrifying and mysterious. I love it so much. So this is a perfect novel for someone like that, who has that sort of passion and wonder for science and space. My least favorite part is, and I mentioned at the very top, Rocky's really human, the way that he feels and experiences and communicates, and it just becomes a little too human. And I like the idea that he's an alien, and I want aliens to be alien, i.e. different, not understandable. And it gets to a point where Ryland doesn't need a computer to communicate with him through the music. He just becomes fluent in the musical language and understands it. And I get it. Yeah, I could see how that would happen, but it does make me kind of want more of an alien back and forth. And while this is not supposed to be a horror book in any way, I'm so primed with the idea that aliens are not beneficent beings that are so willing to share and look after and care in the ways that a human could. And humans, just look at our world right now. We're fucking monsters. We're the worst of the worst to each other, to our planet, to other life. Like, we don't deserve any of this. And we take advantage of it every second we get. And yet in books like this, it's like the aliens and humans are just the most caring and loving people and willing to share and connect. And it's nice to read, but it rings as wholly inauthentic. And so the only thing that's very human is the scientist that sends Ryland here at the very beginning. You know, I'm sort of looking for her name again, Eva Strat. She's supposed to be this sort of mechanical human, but she's doing it so that she can save the species. So it's understandable, right? But it still rings true to a human being having issues and problems and quirks and, you know, just nuance. Everyone else in this is just so open and willing to share, and even humanity. And I just don't see that in our day-to-day lives right now. And so it's hard to understand in even more dire situation than we find ourselves in the world, that we would be better versus worse. Seems like it just gets exponentially worse in real life than in science fiction. So that's where it rang untrue to me, but I forgave it because it's so good and it's so entertaining. There are some pretty big differences between the novel and stuff. The one that sticks out in my mind the most is that in order to offset the time of human species, you know, losing half of itself to this dying sun, is that they have to blow up Antarctica, the glaciers in Antarctica, in order to release all of the greenhouse gases to exceedingly heat the Earth from its own atmosphere to make up for the difference of the sun's radiation heating up the Earth. I thought that was a very interesting solution, and they all know, and they explicitly say it in this, that it's not a good one. It's just sort of the best of the worst options, and it's a stopgap at best, and it only buys them a little bit of time. But there's an inevitability of global war. Food scarcity has always been the cause of war. Famine, lack of water, resources, ultimately, when you get down to it, resources necessary for life have always been the cause of population, distribution, and conflict throughout all of human history. And that will be inevitable. If something like this were ever to happen, nations would start hoarding resources, and then when they ran out, they would go to war with other nations who have resources that they need. That's just human nature. It will inevitably happen. And so it never really addresses the outcome. I would love to, you know, have like maybe a couple chapters released just to fans of the book about what Andy Weir thinks happened when Ryland was in the spaceship and all that time passed, what happened actually on Earth, because we don't really get a firm grasp. We know at the end that they survive, that humanity survives, because the sun itself goes back to its full brightness, meaning the solution that Ryland Gray sent back to Earth was successfully implemented by Earth. So we know they solved the problem, but what was the fallout before that? That's what I want to know. And there's this sort of tongue-in-cheek moment where they're like, well, Eva Strout is going to be, you know, put in prison because of everything she had to do. But she was given immunity by like every nation. So I can't imagine them going and putting her in prison after they gave her immunity in order to save the planet, especially now that we learn they were successful. You know, regardless of the fallout, everything she did was for the sake of humanity, and I just cannot see them punishing her for that. So that is the novel. It is so goddamned good. Oh, I was going to go over to this screen where it shows the two book covers and stuff, but what are you going to do? This is 5 out of 5 Evil Eyes. If I could give it 10 out of 5 Evil Eyes, I would. This was such a good novel. It is something that I think everyone who loves science fiction should read. And Andy Weir, sweet fucking hell, he is such a good author. I mean, this is his third book. Now that I'm sort of looking back and looking at my notes and stuff, I don't think I ever read The Martian, and I definitely didn't read his second novel, which is about the moon, moon colony, which did not get very good reviews. But I'm still going to read it because The Martian's brilliant. This is brilliant. There has to be something to that other novel as well that I want to explore. So let me know what you guys think. Have you read it? Have you seen the movie? How did it affect you? Let me know. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you, of course, to creator patrons Aaron Hardy and D. Robert Handy, developer patrons Chris Androu and Sam Ruiz, and all of the YouTube members. Thank you for tuning in. As always, like it or not, evil spelled backwards is live, so get out there and be evil.